The Force is old and full of shadows.
The chamber is small. This was always his preference. Yoda sits in the center of it, legs folded, hands resting open on his knees, eyes closed. The Geimer stick leans against the wall behind him. The window above his meditation mat holds the first pale bruise of Coruscant dawn. The city never fully darkens, but it has a quieter hour. And this is it, and he uses it every morning without exception. He has been meditating in this chamber for 63 years. The Force hums beneath him, familiar as breathing. The temple's collective presence, 100 Jedi sleeping, training. Moving through the early hour, settles into the edges of his awareness the way sound settles into a room you know well. He reads the living map of it without effort. Mace Windu, 3 levels up, already working through the kinetic sequences of Vapod before the morning meal. Dooku, East Wing. The restless sleep that never quite completes itself. The younglings in their Kersha dormitory, Force signatures small and bright and still as candle flames. This is the work. To sit in the center of it, and listen, and hold. He breathes. Releases, breathes, then he finds it. Not darkness. Not a threat the Force is angling him toward. Something he has no precise word for. A resistance. A vibration at a frequency that doesn't belong to the morning. Like the string of an instrument tuned correctly, but sustaining a harmonic that belongs to a different song. He turns his awareness toward it the way a man turns a hand toward a door to test whether it is warm before opening. That is the mistake. It is also the gift. The door opens from the other side. It does not arrive in sequence. There is no narrative mercy to it. It comes the way a detonation comes, not step by step but all at once, every atom of it in the same instant, and then you are simply inside it, with no before and no after. Order 66. He is on Kashyyyk. He will always be on Kashyyyk. The clones are turning, not with anger, not with the expressions of men making a choice, but with the emptied certainty of a switch being thrown. And the Force? The Force screams. Not a metaphor, not the poetic language of the temple's philosophical texts. The actual Force, the living web that binds every sentient life in the galaxy, crying out as hundreds of lights go dark simultaneously. Then, hundreds more. Then the number stops mattering, because it is happening everywhere at once, and there is no direction safe from it. And he is standing on a platform above the Kashyyyk canopy, with his ears ringing from a sound no one else in the clearing can hear. The silence after is not peace. The silence after is the sound of amputation. The temple. He never goes back. That is the truth he carries. He never walks those corridors again. Because the Force shows him what is on those floors and he cannot stand inside it. He sees it anyway. The long nights on Dagobah offer no mercy to their occupant on this particular subject. The scorch marks in the Room of 1,000 Fountains, the small bodies in the training halls, in the practiced fallen postures of children who were still learning how to fall, the ones who ran toward sanctuary and found sealed doors, because the being who should have held the door open was already pointing a shuttle toward the swamp. He carries them. Every one. The breathing. It arrives before the image does. That is the cruelest part. The mechanical hiss and draw, so precisely engineered that no human cadence survives inside it. He knows that breathing. He trained the boy who lives behind it. He watched the boy become something extraordinary, and then he watched, from too great a distance, as everything extraordinary in him was fed into the engine of the darkness, and what came out the other side breathes that way now. Permanently, by design. Obi-Wan. A light going out, felt at a distance the way a star is felt, not as a physical event, but as a sudden and absolute absence of warmth. One of the last of them. And then not. Dagobah, 19 years. The swamp is indifferent to 9 centuries of wisdom. It does not adjust for seniority. He goes to ground in the green half-dark and calls it strategy, because it is, and calls it penance, because it is also that, and beneath both of those he knows what it actually is. Hiding, the wisest being in the galaxy, hiding in a swamp on a planet no one important will look at, because the wisdom has no one left to serve. There is another. 3 words. His deathbed sentence. Delivered to a boy kneeling in the dying light of the hut, framed as comfort, and it is not comfort, it is a delegation. He is handing off the unfinished work to a child who should never have had to carry it. And then he dies peacefully. That is the worst of it. After all of that, after the screaming force and the temple and the breathing machine and the 19 years, and every failure given a name and a face, he dies peacefully. As if he had earned it. He had not. Consciousness returns like a tide finding the shore. He is on the floor. He doesn't remember falling. His body yielded at some point during the flood, and the meditation stone is cool against his cheek, and the Coruscant dawn has moved on without him. More light now. Gold edging through the window. He looks at his hands. They are wrong. The lines are shallow. The skin pulls firm and taut across his knuckles when he flexes, not the papery give he has been managing for centuries. He flexes them again, more deliberately every finger, the full arc of both palms opening and closing, and the response is complete. Fluid. Zero resistance in any joint. He stands. His knees do not ache. His spine does not pull. He rises to his full 66 centimeters and breathes, one breath, unguarded, unmanaged, and his lungs fill in a way they have not filled in 500 years. He reaches into the Force. It answers like a river through a canyon at flood season, not the careful trickle he has spent centuries rationing through a body that could no longer hold the full channel, but a torrent. Staggering and immediate. The room shifts around him as his Force presence, no longer braced down by age, unfolds to its natural radius, and somewhere 3 levels below him, a sleeping Padawan rolls over without knowing why. The full reserve of a body 2 centuries old, still climbing toward its prime ceiling, opening beneath him like a held breath released all at once. He could lift this building. The Geimer stick falls. He doesn't notice it against his heel until it is already toppling, doesn't register the sound of it against the stone, does not reach to catch it. He doesn't look at it. He ignites his lightsaber. Green, his color, across 9 centuries. The blade catches in both eyes, and he moves, one Ataru form testing, then a second, a third. And they flow the way they used to flow before the body became a negotiation, before every sequence became a calculation of what the Force could do against what the joints would permit. He adds a 4th form. A 5th. He is faster than he has been in half a millennium, and he is not yet at his ceiling, and he is fully aware of that. He stops in the center of the room. He gives himself 3 seconds. 3 seconds to stand with the full weight of what he knows, the grief of it, the magnitude, 9 centuries of hard-won wisdom deployed too late, and then not at all. Because grief, not given its 3 seconds, will take the rest of your life instead. He has learned this the long way around. 3 seconds. Then he begins to think. He speaks aloud. Not to the Force, not to any presence in the room, to the air, because a 900-year tactician does not catalog silently when the stakes are these. The words need to exist outside him. They need to be real. 32 BB, he says. The Phantom Menace has not played out. Qui-Gon Jinn is alive. Anakin Skywalker is on Tatooine, 9 years old, a slave, the most powerful Force-sensitive being in the history of this order. And entirely alone. Palpatine is a senator from Naboo with a vote and a plan. Nothing more than that. Not yet. Darth Maul has not been deployed. The clones are not commissioned. Dooku has not fallen. The temple stands. Ahsoka Tano is approximately 4 years old on Sheely, and no one is coming for her for years. A pause. Time, he says there is. He walks to the window. Coruscant fills the frame, the skyline unbroken, the Republic lights burning in the early haze, the Senate dome rising against the pale morning as though it will simply always be there. He has seen this skyline in his memories reduced to smoke and silence. He has carried it through 19 years of swamp and exile as the image of everything he failed to hold. It is whole. It is intact. It is not yet lost. He turns from the window. He crosses to where the Geimer stick lies on the stone floor and picks it up, not gripping it, not leaning on it, just carrying it, and walks to the wall and sets it against the stone with both hands. Deliberately, it is not discarded. It is placed. He is not angry at what it represents. He simply does not need it anymore, and the body standing here, breathing without cost, holding a torrent without strain, already knows this. He straightens. Make every mistake twice, he says quietly, to the room, to the morning, to 63 years of this chamber and 9 centuries before it. The wise man does not. He goes to find the council. The session is mid-rotation when the door opens. Mace Windu is reading from a datapad. Assignment allocations for the Outer Rim, routine business, the kind that fills the first hour of every morning session. Ki-Adi-Mundi is making a notation. Saesee Tiin has his eyes half closed in a passive listening state. Deepa Billaba sits with her hands folded precisely in her lap. 12 Jedi Masters in their 12 seats, performing the unglamorous administrative work that keeps the Order running, and the morning is unremarkable. Then, the door opens. Every Force sensitive in the chamber feels it before they see him. Yoda's presence has been a background constant in this room for as long as any of them have held a seat. Warm, familiar, the specific ambient radiation of the most senior being in the building, processed and filed and stopped being consciously registered years ago, the same way the mind stops registering the hum of ventilation, the weight of one's own robes. He is always somewhere in the temple. He always feels the same way. Today, he does not feel the same way. It enters the room a full step before he does. Not darkness, not threat, not anything the Council has a training category for. Something dense, something that has been compressed for a very long time, behind the careful management of an aged body, and is no longer being compressed. 9 centuries of knowledge and grief and hard certainty, inhabiting a form that can finally hold the full weight of it, walking through a door into a morning session. Mace Windu's hand moves to his lightsaber hilt. He stops the motion before it completes, but it happened. His hand moved without a decision being made. Beside him, Plo Koon's breathing has shifted. Deepa Billaba has gone entirely still, her folded hands tightening once, imperceptibly. Even PL, across the circle, tilts his head the way he does when the Force delivers information he hasn't asked for yet. Yoda walks to his chair. He does not sit. He stands in front of it and regards the 12 of them for 3 full, unhurried seconds, taking stock, Mace realizes, the way a commander takes stock of terrain before committing to a route. A Sith Lord exists, he says. No ritual greeting. No preamble. Clean galactic basic, the syntax unornamented. Has existed for decades. Here, on Coruscant, in this city, breathing Senate air. We have not found him because we were not looking where he actually stands. He does not hide in the dark, he hides in plain sight. With a title, an office, and a Senate vote. And today, right now, he is moving pieces. The dissonance in the chamber is immediate. Not protest, something prior to protest. The collective processing of 12 trained minds pressing the assertion against every assumption, underpinning the last decade of their professional lives, and finding that it does not simply bounce away. Mace speaks first. His voice is careful with the specific carefulness of a man whose mind has already run 4 steps ahead to the implications and is choosing not to outpace the evidence. Master Yoda. What you're describing would require a Sith Lord to have been operating beneath our detection for decades. Yes, he lets that land. Our failure, this is. Our arrogance. Content we were, believed that had the Sith truly returned, felt it we would. Wrong, completely, fundamentally wrong. He is better at hiding than we are at seeking. And smug about our seeking, we were. Ki-Adi-Mundi's eyes have taken on the focused quality they get before a procedural objection, the slight tightening around the orbital ridge, the drawing in. He needs evidence. He needs a chain of formal. Yoda does not argue. He reaches into the Force. Not a push, not a projection. He simply opens the ceiling he has been managing his output through all morning and lets what is actually there enter the room. The full reserve of a prime body that has stopped containing itself, 9 centuries pressed into 200 years of perfect biological capacity. radiating forward without management or apology. Every counselor is moved. Not physically, no chair scrapes back, no one loses their footing, but the force in the chamber shifts the way pressure shifts before a storm front, and it shifts toward them, and every trained nervous system in the room registers it as, this being has already decided. And it was already decided before he walked through the door, and the decision is correct. Ki-Adi-Mundi stops with his mouth open, the objection still forming, unable to find the purchase for it. Plo Koon makes a sound. Small, involuntary. The sound of a man bumping against something vast in the dark. Even Adi Gallia, who has faced Sith assassins in the field without flinching, presses back in her seat. Yoda withdraws the output. The room breathes. No time for doubt there is, he says. Only for decision. On Tatooine, he continues. A boy. 9 years old. His midi-chlorian count exceeds every record this order holds, because he is not merely Force-sensitive, he is of the Force itself. Born from it, no paternal origin. The chosen one. He lets it sit for 3 seconds, watches the Council absorb it. The prophecy, bring balance to the Force, believed we did this meant, Sith destroyed, Jedi triumphant. Wrong interpretation. Balance is not our victory. Balance is equilibrium, a living center point, held by a being who carries both light and dark potential without being consumed by either. The Force does not need a weapon. It needs a compass. Adi Gallia, Master Yoda, the training considerations for a child his age. 900 years, he says, and his voice does not rise. I have pondered this prophecy. It goes quieter instead. Understood it wrong. We all did. Waited for him to save us. Prepared to receive him, evaluate his count, test his fear, tell his mother goodbye. Build him inside a curriculum that has been failing for 1,000 years. Meanwhile, a pause that is not rhetorical. We were the thing he needed saving from. Deepa Bilaba speaks, and her voice is very quiet. You're saying we would have broken him. In the life I have already considered, yes, without malice, with every good intention the Order is capable of. Step by step, tradition by tradition, we would have unmade everything the Force built in him, and called it proper training, and when he fell, we would have mourned the prophecy. Not our part in it. Nobody finds the angle for an argument. There is no ground to stand on for one. Today I go to Tatooine. The boy comes here with his mother. His mother stays, permanent quarters, an income, proximity, that accommodation will be made. Even PL, the code is specific on the question of, the code, Yoda says with the particular finality of someone setting a stone down, is changing, starting today. He moves toward the door. He stops. Without turning, Master Dooku. Stay, please. The rest of the council files out. The sound of robes, the soft mechanical close of the chamber door, and then 2 beings alone in the morning light, one standing at the threshold, and one who has not moved from his seat, sitting with the permanent straight-backed tension of a man conducting an argument with himself that he is losing. Dooku watches his old master's back. Yoda turns, looks at him, not managing, not reading him for tactical information, simply looking at a man he trained from childhood, who became one of the finest Jedi of his generation, and who is currently standing at the edge of a decision that will take everything from him. On the edge, you are, he says. I know that edge. Spent time near it myself, in thought, across a long life. Watched someone I loved walk past it and fall. You speak, Dooku says with great precision, as if you can read my thoughts. Your thoughts are your own. But the path is not unique, and the man who has been offering you what you need, he already exists, has already found you. Not with his hand, not yet. With questions, small ones, letters that seem to only confirm what you already know. The particular careful attention of someone who noticed that your frustrations are completely accurate, and has been making absolutely certain you know he noticed. Dooku goes still. The involuntary kind, not the performed stillness of a man choosing composure, but the sudden absolute stop of a man who has just felt the floor shift. His name you don't know yet. But his face you've met. And when he comes to you fully, when he offers you evidence, agency, a real alternative, everything he gives you will be true. Every corruption he names is real. Every failure of the Republic he documents will be accurate. A pause. That is what makes the trap so clean. Something works in Dooku's jaw. The expression of a precise and prideful mind processing the particular humiliation of having been moved without knowing it. Yoda walks to the door, rests one hand on the frame. The disillusionment you carry, valid. It is. The Order has failed, and the Republic is corrupt, and every grievance you have brought to this council has been accurate and undertreated. Deserve answers? You do. Deserve to see real change? You do. Every bit of it. He looks back at Dooku. What you don't deserve is the man who will offer to give it to you. He steps through the door. It closes behind him, quiet on its hydraulics, leaving the chamber to the morning light and the 12 empty seats and the single standing figure inside them. Dooku does not move. His hands are very carefully still at his sides, and he stands there in the silence of the emptied room, thinking. The shuttle lands on a pad at Mos Espa's edge and raises a flat curtain of rust-colored dust. No delegation. No ceremony. Yoda steps down the ramp alone, robes plain, Geimer stick left aboard without thinking about it. The twin suns hit him like a physical weight, dry and absolute, the kind of heat that doesn't negotiate. He has been to Tatooine before, in the life he is now trying to prevent. He has stood in this heat above a Tusken camp and felt the Force screaming with what was happening inside it. That is not today. He closes his eyes at the edge of the landing pad and reaches outward. He is prepared for it. He has told himself he is prepared for it. And still, when he finds the Force signature, at the distance of half a city, through the background noise of 10,000 lives packed into Mos Espa's sandstone grid, it stops his breath entirely. Not Vader, not the armored compression of the Force he carried for 23 years in his memories, turned inward and downward into a weapon that could not stop hurting. This is the opposite of that. Pure, constant, singing at a frequency that does not belong to a 9-year-old boy in a slave quarter, but to something the galaxy only produces once in a very long while, like standing near a small sun. There you are, Yoda says softly, to the dust, to no one. There you are, my boy. He follows the signature through Mos Espa's streets without announcing himself. He wants to see the boy before the boy sees a Jedi. He finds him in a side alley near the market quarter, not playing, not where a child with a free hour might choose to spend it. He is crouched beside a drainage gutter where an elderly Rodian's repulsor lift cart has lodged itself sideways in the channel. The cart is loaded with goods. The Rodian is too old to move it alone. Anakin Skywalker is getting his hands filthy pulling on the front strut with the total unself-conscious commitment of someone who sees that help is needed and provides it. No audience, no one watching who matters to him. He works the cart free, accepts the Rodian's thanks with a short nod, and turns to go. Then a Toydarian vendor materializes from a nearby stall, already raising the price on a replacement part the Rodian needs for the damaged wheel housing. The number he quotes is roughly double the morning's rate. Anakin stops. He turns. All of him, at 9 years old, not yet tall enough to look the Toydarian in the eye. Placing himself in the space between the vendor and the old Rodian with the full moral weight of a child who has not yet learned that he is supposed to be afraid of inconvenient adults. That's not the price you quoted, he says. The vendor blinks. Recalculates. The Rodian gets the fair price. Yoda stands across the alley with his hands folded inside his robes and his expression the opposite of neutral. Yes, he says, barely above a breath. Chosen. You are. The boy notices him eventually. His eyes go wide in the particular way of someone encountering the thing they have wanted most, in a context that should make it impossible. Are you a Jedi? I am, Yoda says. Grand Master Yoda, they call me. A beat. Anakin's eyes travel from the top of his head to his feet and back up with the frank appraisal of a 9-year-old who has not yet learned to hide curiosity behind courtesy. You're small. Yes. And you are 9. Grow. We both shall. The laugh comes from somewhere the boy was not guarding. Not performance, not politeness. Surprised, unguarded, the laughter of a child startled out of awe completely against his will. It lasts 2 seconds. Then the wariness reasserts itself, the automatic recalibration of a child who has learned that adults with authority require careful handling. Yoda sits on the edge of a nearby water trough. At the boy's eye level, not looming, not evaluating from height. He folds his hands on his knee and looks at Anakin and says, "Tell me about yourself." Not, "What is your midi-chlorian count?" Not, "What is your greatest fear?" Just, "Tell me who you are." Anakin talks. Carefully at first, the practiced language of a slave child speaking to an unfamiliar adult, neutral and non-committal. Nothing offered that could be used against him. The pod he is rebuilding, Kitster, the races he is going to win one day, the things he constructs in the back of the shop that Watto considers a waste of parts and time. The caution loosens slowly, because Yoda says nothing threatening and asks nothing sharp and simply listens with his full attention. The specific, undivided regard of someone for whom this particular boy is the most interesting subject in the city. Then, Anakin stops, his eyes drop to the ground. "My mom." Quieter now, all the calibrated neutrality gone from his voice. "My real dream is to free her. Someday." Afraid that someday will never come, are you? Anakin looks up. Nobody has ever asked it that directly. "Yeah." "Good," Yoda says. "Hold on to that fear." The boy blinks. Every story he has ever heard about the Jedi says, not to be paralyzed by it, but to let it remind you what matters. The fear that says, "This is precious. Do not lose this." That fear is not weakness. It is love wearing armor. Never let anyone tell you otherwise. A silence. Then, carefully. "Jedi aren't supposed to." "The Jedi have been wrong about many things," Yoda says. Starting with this. He watches the boy's face, the slow movement across it, the cautious, half-disbelieving thing that is almost hope assembling itself from scratch. He files it somewhere in his memory that does not belong to strategy. He came here for the prophecy. He came for the compass the Force needs, the living center point the galaxy requires. He is looking at a child who stands between Toydarian vendors and old Rhodians in back alleys with no audience and nothing to gain, and he understands, with a clarity that has nothing to do with 9 centuries of accumulated wisdom, exactly why he came. Watto's shop smells of machine oil and long grievance. Watto looks up from behind his counter with the expression of a being who was not having a good morning and has now been made to have a demonstrably worse one. He gets less pleased when Yoda sets a small, sealed case on the counter, not a datapad, not a Republic document. He opens it. Inside, arranged in rows, are ingots of Alderaanian electrum, raw refined metal, universally portable value. The currency of choice for transactions that happen far from where the Republic's writ runs. Yoda came to Tatooine having done the calculation in advance, what Watto would accept, what the market price was, what amount above asking would make the transaction clean enough to complete without argument. He covered assessed value for both Shmi and Anakin, plus 10% above. Watto stares at the ingots. He is a Toydarian. He knows exactly what he is looking at. "The transaction is simple," Yoda says. "Fair value, already counted. Above asking. You will find nothing to dispute." A very long pause. The Toydarian's wings beat in an irregular, nervous rhythm he cannot suppress. He takes the case. 5 minutes. The whole thing takes 5 minutes, from the moment Yoda sets the payment down to the moment Watto's authorization prints. Decades of suffering resolved in a business exchanged the length of a lunch break, not because it was simple. Because the right person finally walked through the door and brought the right currency. Shmi Skywalker opens the door in her work clothes, hands still dusty from the morning's labor. She looks at the small green alien in her doorway, then at her son standing beside him, and she reads her son's face. She has always been able to read her son's face, and something in her goes very still. Anakin looks unclenched. She has not seen that expression on him in years. Yoda bows. A full Jedi bow, unhurried and formal, directed entirely at her. Shmi Skywalker. Free. You are. Both of you. Legally. Completely. As of this morning. She doesn't cry. Not immediately. She stands in the doorway while the thing she spent 9 years carefully not letting herself imagine becomes real inside her body, real the way things are real when you have protected yourself from wanting them, and they arrive anyway. Her voice, when it comes, is steady. Where will we go? Coruscant. The Jedi Temple. Quarters. An income. Work if you choose it. Your son will train. And you will remain. His mother, always, you will be. The Council will accommodate this because I will require it of them. Jedi don't have families. The Jedi are changing, he says. Starting today. She looks at him for a long time with the direct, unornamented attention of a woman who learned long ago that survival depends on knowing exactly who is standing in front of you. Reading him the way she reads her son. Looking for the catch, for the qualifier, for the version of this that costs something terrible. She finds none. Then she exhales. 9 years of held breath, all at once. Tatooine shrinks in the observation window. Anakin has his forehead pressed to the transparent steel, watching until the planet is a pale smudge, and then watching the smudge until it is gone. Behind them in the passenger cabin, Shmi sleeps, real sleep, the deep, ungoverned sleep of a body that has been owed it for years. Yoda sits beside the boy, not across the cabin, beside him. Master Yoda? Why did you come yourself? You're the Grand Master. Couldn't you have sent someone? Yoda looks out at the stars. The pause is not evasion. It is the pause of someone locating the honest answer and deciding it deserves to be given. For some things cannot send someone else. For some things must come yourself, or it is not the same thing at all. What things? The things that matter most. Anakin considers this with the seriousness of a child who understands that certain answers are real answers and deserve real thought. Then, he turns back to the stars and watches them in the particular silence of someone who has nothing left to worry about tonight. Contented, a boy going home for the first time. The briefing room has no windows. 4 chairs, 1 table, and a hand-drawn schematic that should not exist. Yoda drew it himself the previous night. Level 5000 secondary access tunnels rendered in precise ink lines. Junction points marked, guard rotation estimates annotated in the margins in a hand too steady for the hour. No Jedi in the Order has surveyed that depth of Coruscant's underworld. The Republic's Urban Mapping Authority stops 400 levels above it. The document lying in front of Mace Windu, Dooku, and Deepa Bilaba was produced by a being who has never, in any recorded mission history, operated below the mid-levels. Mace looks at it for a long moment. Then he looks at Yoda. How do you know this layout? Trust me. Or don't. But if trust me you don't, alone I'll go. Nobody suggests that as an acceptable outcome. The mission parameters, Yoda continues, are these. Recover the caches from 3 confirmed locations. Do not engage the primary target. Do not alert his network that we have been here. A pause. He will know eventually. But later is better than now. Deepa Bilaba. And the primary target is a senator from Naboo, Yoda says, with a vote and a plan. Not ready for him yet. We are. Tonight we build the case. Nobody asks again about the schematic. They descend through a maintenance shaft, no transit markers. No security checkpoints, no record of entry or route. Yoda moves at the front. His force presence is compressed into something that reads, to any passive sensitivity they might brush against, as unremarkable background radiation. He has been doing this since long before any of them were born. The surface falls away above them. Coruscant's upper face, the glass towers, the Senate dome, the traffic streams moving in their regulated rivers of light, becomes a ceiling that becomes a floor that becomes another ceiling as they descend. The mid-levels follow, older construction, amber emergency strips, the hum of pipes carrying power and water to the surface that has ceased to remember them. Then the works, the district that shut down a generation ago when heavy industry relocated to orbital platforms, leaving its skeleton behind. Decommissioned refineries with their cooling towers cold and still, service corridors where the floor plates shift faintly underfoot, the particular quality of silence that belongs to machinery built for constant motion that has not moved in years. Then, below the works, older still, Pre-Republic construction. Stone laid in proportions that do not match any standard currently taught in the temple's architectural history courses, a different civilization's geometry, a different civilization's confidence in its own permanence. The air changes at this depth, it carries centuries in it. The particular taste of enclosed dark and slow organic decay, the smell of water that has not seen light since before the Republic was a concept. And something else. Dooku stops at the bottom of the final access shaft. His hand rests against the wall, not for balance, but with the involuntary careful attention of a Force sensitive, touching a surface that is touching something back. There's a nexus here, he says. Low and precise. Old. I can feel the pressure of it. Ancient, Yoda says. He looks at the walls, at the dark pressed into the stone like stain into cloth, like something absorbed over centuries of deliberate cultivation. The Sith. Built here. Before the Republic. Before our temple above us, this was their city too. He did not choose this location for secrecy only. He turns from the wall. He chose it for nutrition. Dooku pulls his hand away from the stone. The sealed chamber presents as solid durasteel on every scanner they carry. No seam, no hinge, no access panel visible. Nothing to suggest a threshold. Yoda stands before it and places both palms flat against the surface. He is still for 8 seconds, Mace counts without deciding to, and then his fingers move through a sequence that is not force push, and not a standard lock release, but something between them. Something addressing the specific mechanism inside the door rather than the door as an object. Manipulating the architecture of the thing rather than the thing itself. It opens. Mace looks at him. Yoda walks through without addressing the look. Inside, organized darkness. Sith holocrons in categorized racks, sealed behind containment fields, their casings absorbing the light from the team's hand lamps rather than returning it. Rows of encrypted data chips in labeled cases. A wall-mounted map in Sith script with names circled in red ink and dates annotated beside each one. Senate contacts. Yoda understands. Pressure points in the Republic legislature cultivated and catalogued with the patience of a long-term agricultural project. And correspondence files, physical documents, the written record of a plan being grown in the dark for longer than most of the Jedi currently serving have been alive. The ambush arrives on schedule. Shadow droids drop from ceiling panels, 3 of them, compact, fast, blasters already locked. Behind them, 2 beings in civilian dress who move with the precise economy of people for whom combat is their primary professional language, not inquisitors, too early for that infrastructure. Darkside-trained operatives, backup assets developed across years. Professionals with full authorization to kill everything in this room. The first droid fires. Yoda is not where the bolt is going. He is 1 step left, and the bolt goes past, and his hand moves, a single gesture less than 1 second in duration, redirecting it back through the droid's chassis along a path its own targeting system did not predict. Because targeting systems predict what opponents will do, not what they have already done. The droid drops. Mace takes the second. His purple blade makes short, exact work of it, Vapod's characteristic economy. No wasted motion, no flourish. Deepa takes the third from the opposite side in the same breath, her strike clean and final. The 2 Force operatives converge on Yoda from flanking angles. It is a coordinated approach, designed against a single opponent, prevent them tracking both vectors simultaneously, overwhelmed through geometry. His Force foresight reads both lines before either has completed their second step. He moves through the gap between them with his green blade already drawn and does not kill either one. A disarming cut across the right wrist, the weapon drops. A concentrated force pressure to the knee joint of the second, targeted and surgical, that takes the leg out without breaking it. Both go down hard and stay there. They are evidence, not garbage. Mace stands in the aftermath and looks at the 2 incapacitated operatives on the floor, and then at Yoda, who is already moving toward the back of the cache with his hand lamp raised, unhurried. Come, Yoda says. Still more there is. The red-cased holocron sits on the 3rd rack from the back wall. It activates before he reaches for it, responds to his proximity the way a device responds to the specific signature it was keyed to detect, the gatekeeper flickering to life on its own. But it does not request a query. It plays a stored message. Sidious's voice fills the chamber. Measured, precise, the voice of a senator delivering a briefing, calm, intelligent, entirely confident in the plan it is describing, because the plan is working and has been working and will continue to work. He is narrating the Naboo political timeline to an unseen audience, the sequence of pressure points, the names of Senate contacts to cultivate, the order in which to apply leverage to which positions, the exact timing for calling in debts that have been accumulating for years, every domino, every finger position on every fulcrum. The recording is 5 years old. Dooku goes perfectly still. He recognizes the names. Not all of them, some are deep cover, contacts outside his orbit, but enough. Senators whose positions he discussed in correspondence with an anonymous contact who seemed to share his well-documented concerns about Republican corruption. Strategic vulnerabilities in the legislature he identified through his own analysis, and shared, in good faith, with someone who seemed to be building toward the same goals he was. This voice is describing that analysis, verbatim, as an asset, already leveraged, already deployed. He is in this recording in every way except the mention of his name. I have been. The words come out with his jaw set and his hands, normally so deliberately still, the trained composure of a man who considers visible agitation beneath him, visibly trembling. Not fear. The specific cold fury of a man of tremendous pride discovering that the choices he believed were his own were never his own, that the path he was walking was drawn for him before he took his first step onto it. I have been a tool, Yoda says. Yes, his, from the beginning. Something works in Dooku's face, a rapid, internal accounting. Years of correspondence and confidence and carefully chosen positions reframing themselves at speed into their actual shape. I want to. No, you do. Yoda holds his gaze, not managing him, not suppressing him. Fully present with the weight of what this man is carrying right now, and choosing not to minimize it. Understand, I do. Burn this city down you want. Every level of it. A beat. But need this evidence? We do. Every piece, every record, all of it intact. He does not look away. Come. Dooku reaches out and takes the red-cased holocron from the rack. He holds it with both hands, at deliberate full-arm extension, the grip of someone handling something that is simultaneously the most valuable object in the room and the most contaminated. Which is exactly what it is. He carries Palpatine's voice out of the chamber and into the dark without another word, and Yoda walks beside him. And neither of them speaks again until the light of the surface is somewhere above them. Anakin has been at the temple for 2 weeks. He is already, quietly, becoming something of a legend among the Padawan candidates, not through arrogance, which is notably absent, but through the simple fact that the standard endurance sequences were calibrated for students who are constitutionally capable of finding them difficult. He completes them. He completes them first. Then he waits, with perfect and slightly glazed patience, while the other students finish, because no one has told him he is allowed to stop, and Anakin Skywalker does not stop without being told. He has also, without asking permission, modified one of the training room's obstacle sequences to better target lateral force response rather than vertical. The modification is correct. Nobody has rescinded it. He is halfway through a joint meditation session when Yoda appears in the doorway and says, simply, come. On the shuttle, Anakin waits approximately 4 minutes before speaking. Where are we going? Shilly. Why? Finding someone. Who? A person who matters, Yoda says. Your partner. One day she may be. Good for you, to meet her, even if just a moment. Anakin considers this. How old is she? Young. How young? A pause. 4 years, perhaps, small, loud, I suspect. Shilly announces itself from Orbita's color. The continent below is not the dusty ochre of Tatooine or the gray processed surface of Coruscant. It is alive, deep amber and rich red, vast grasslands interrupted by the towering, fungal flora unique to this world, the whole surface carrying a warmth that reads even from altitude as inhabited and tended. A world that knows it is a world and has arranged itself accordingly. The village sits at the junction of two river valleys, a communal settlement built in concentric rings, the outer structures broad and shared, the inner ones more private, everything organized around a central gathering space that serves simultaneously as marketplace, social ground, and the particular kind of open-air room that belongs to everyone. Togruta moved through it with the spatial awareness of people in a space designed for many, conscious of each other without collision, the instinctive fluid navigation of a species evolved for dense communal living. Yoda walks through the outer ring without asking directions. His eyes are half closed. He is following the Force the way he followed it through Mos Espa's streets, not searching, but listening, letting the signal lead him through the color and the warmth and the movement of the village. It leads him to a dwelling in the inner ring. Modest, well-kept, the doorframe painted in the red and white markings of the clan. He stops, reaches into the Force, and finds her. Her Force presence is nothing like Anakin's. Anakin is a sun, constant, total, the kind of signature that registers on every sensitive within range and reads as nothing other than itself. Vast, unguarded, singing at a frequency that precedes language and doesn't particularly care whether it is heard. This is different. This is precise. A single note from a tuning fork struck cleanly, resonant and exact, carrying no ambiguity about its pitch. Not power in the raw sense. Not volume. Something else entirely. Accuracy. The Force in this child is not loud. It is correct. Every time. The kind of sensitivity that does not overwhelm but never misses, that does not illuminate a room but finds the specific thing in the dark that needs finding. She will be the blade that never misses. Yoda stands in the doorway of the dwelling for a moment, before knocking. He holds this small beacon of precision in his Force awareness and allows himself one breath of something that is not strategy and not calculation. Then, he knocks. Her parents receive him with the careful, dignified courtesy of people who have been told by the village elders that a Jedi Grand Master has arrived and are determined not to show that this is the most significant day of their lives. They offer tea. Yoda accepts. He hears Ahsoka before he sees her. She is in the back room, engaged in a spirited argument with a wooden toy that is not cooperating with her intentions for it. 4 years old, her montrals still small and not yet at the pronounced angle they will reach in adulthood, the white facial markings sharp and clear against orange skin. She rounds the corner, stops dead, and stares at him with the absolute unguarded assessment of a small child encountering the most unusual thing she has seen today. Then she walks directly to him and grabs his ear. Both hands. Full grip. The complete committed confidence of a child who has identified something interesting and sees no reason to be indirect about it. Strong grip, Yoda notes. Appropriate. She does not let go. She is examining his ear with the focused curiosity of a 4-year-old conducting rigorous research. He does not attempt to disengage. Through the contact, her small warm hands against the side of his head, holding with that absolute Togruta certainty, the Force opens. 3 seconds. Exactly 3. He sees white lightsabers in the dark, their color not the red of the Sith or the blue-green of the Order, but something earned individually, bled into Kyber through long seasons of solitude and choice. He sees a desert world, vast and silent, ancient structures rising from sand deep enough to have swallowed civilizations whole. He sees a figure standing alone at the edge of a long drop, in the ruins of something vast, and the figure says, to a darkness that was once something bright, I am no Jedi. And then, beneath the images, not a picture but a fact pressed directly into him like a hand against glass, but I am still here. Alive, walking, alone, yes, but present in the Force, unextinguished, a survivor. When the galaxy tried to prevent it. The 3 seconds end. The vision closes. He holds very still for a moment longer, with her small hands still on his ear, and allows himself one thing that is not strategy. Relief, The conversation with her parents is honest and unhurried. He describes what the Order is asking, the training, the distance, the years of formation inside an institution that is. He tells them without decoration, imperfect and actively in the process of change. He does not soften the separation or minimize what they are being asked, but he describes something the Order has not previously offered. Her family, she will know, he says. Her people, she will carry with her. Her heritage, in every room she enters, it comes with her. Not a loss, not a taking. The Force making room for all of who she is, not only the parts useful to us. Her mother is quiet for a moment. She reads him the way people read you when they have learned that what is offered and what is given are frequently not the same thing. Across the room, Ahsoka has located Anakin's position in the doorway and is watching him with the calculating attention of a child, deciding whether someone is worth her time. "What changed?" her mother asks. "We did," Yoda says. "Or we are changing. Starting now." Her father looks at his daughter, at the small, fierce person who has spent 4 years being entirely and loudly herself, and something in his expression moves. He nods. Anakin has been watching from the doorway with tremendous, effortful patience. "Can I say hello?" Her parents look at Yoda. Yoda looks at Anakin. He looks at Ahsoka, who is already looking at Anakin with the direct, measuring gaze of someone who has done her own assessment and reached a preliminary conclusion. "She'll decide," Yoda says. Anakin steps into the room and crouches down, getting to her level, making himself smaller, the natural instinctive consideration of a child who understands that size can be imposing. He holds out his hand, palm up, open, not reaching for her, just offering. Ahsoka looks at the hand, looks at him, looks at the hand again. Then she grabs it. Both hands, the same grip she had on Yoda's ear, the full Togruta commitment to contact she has decided to accept. She pulls herself closer, examining him with the thoroughness of a 4-year-old scientist who has found a new specimen. He lets her. He doesn't move, doesn't crowd her, just stays crouched and available while she conducts her investigation. They stay like that for a long moment. A 9-year-old boy and a 4-year-old girl, both blazing with the Force in their entirely different registers, his wide and warm and constant, hers precise and clear and utterly certain of itself, connected right now by 2 small hands that have decided to hold and mean it. Yoda watches from across the room. He does not allow himself many private thoughts. The mission is too large and the pieces too many, and there is always the next move to calculate. But he allows himself this one. Completely. This is what it was supposed to look like. Both of them. Together, alive on the shuttle back, Anakin is quiet for a long time, the specific quiet of a child actively thinking rather than simply having nothing to say. Sheely has already disappeared behind them, reduced to color in the port window, then to nothing. "She grabbed on really hard," he says finally. "Yes. She's going to be important, isn't she?" "Yes." He turns from the window, looks at Yoda directly, the way he always asks the thing he actually means. To me, a pause. The stars outside move without comment. "To everyone," Yoda says. "But also, yes, to you." Anakin turns this over, nods once, slowly with the seriousness of someone filing information in a place he intends to find it again. He turns back to the stars and watches them in silence for the rest of the flight home. The anomalies arrive on Palpatine's desk in a single morning. He reads them the way he reads everything, not with alarm, which is a response for beings who have not planned sufficiently, but with the precise, cold attention of a man recalculating coordinates after a course deviation. The Skywalker boy is gone from Tatooine. Purchased with a Grand Master's seal, the transfer logged before anyone in his network registered the intent. His level 5000 cachet has been breached. The perimeter operatives are not reporting because they cannot report, and the silence from that depth has a specific texture he recognizes as someone else's thoroughness. And the Jedi Council, which has been moving with its customary geological patience for the last decade, has abruptly begun moving purposefully. He sits with this for exactly the amount of time it requires. No more. Maul arrives when summoned. Something has changed in the Grand Master, Palpatine says. He does not look up from his desk. I do not yet know what. Find him, assess the threat, and if the opportunity presents itself, a pause, precisely placed. Kill him if you can. If you cannot, survive. Bring me what you learn. Maul says nothing. He rarely does. He is very old, my apprentice, Palpatine says, with the quiet satisfaction of a man confirming an advantage. Old men make mistakes. Maul leaves. Palpatine returns to his work. Yoda has been on the mid-level commercial platform for 40 minutes when Maul finds him. He chose this location with care. Wide open space, no enclosed geometry that rewards ambush tactics. Good sight lines in every direction. The ambient noise of a working platform, cargo lifts and merchant droids, and the low constant hum of the city above and below. Enough cover for what comes next. The civilian population cleared through the simple means of projecting, very gently into the surrounding force, a mild and entirely non-specific sense that this particular stretch of platform has nothing of interest to offer today. They drifted away without knowing why. He is sitting on a bench near the platform's eastern edge, eating from a wrapped parcel of something warm he purchased from a food stall 2 levels up. Just sitting there. Maul comes from the south access corridor. Red and black. Double-bladed saber already ignited, both crimson blades active, the staff held at the low center guard position that is his opening stance. Full combat posture. He closes the distance without announcing himself, because he has never needed to announce himself. He stops 12 meters out. His predator's instinct, refined since infancy, has been reading this situation since the moment the access corridor opened and he saw the bench. Something is wrong, not with the target's capability. His intelligence described an elderly being with a walking stick and diminished force reserves. Something wrong with the geometry, with the fact that the target is sitting, with the absence of any attempt at concealment or defensive positioning, with the quality of attention directed at him, not alarm, not assessment, not the focused preparation of a being who knows a threat is coming and is calculating how to survive it. The being on the bench is watching him with the relaxed interest of someone who has been waiting for a scheduled appointment. Maul does not have a word for what moves through him in that moment. It lives in the neighborhood of dread, which is a place his training has taught him to walk through, but it is not quite dread, and the distinction troubles him. Darth Maul, Yoda says. Waited. I have. You have no idea what is coming for you. Yoda stands. Just stands. Sets the food parcel on the bench. Straightens to his full height. His green blade ignites with a sound that is very quiet in the ambient noise of the platform. On the contrary, Maul opens with the Juyo assault sequence he has used to end every serious engagement of his life. High-velocity diagonal cascades, the first strike designed to establish the rhythm, the second to accelerate it, the third to force a response that can be read and exploited. Relentless, forward, the pure kinetic accumulation that overwhelmed Qui-Gon Jinn, who was a formidable Jedi Knight fighting at his absolute peak. It produces nothing. Yoda does not block. He is not in the path of the first blade when it arrives, having moved by the precise margin required, no more, using nothing extra, and the second blade finds the same absence. He deflects the third with the flat of his saber in a contact that lasts less than 1/10 of a second, redirecting rather than resisting, sending Maul's own momentum past rather than stopping it. His footwork is 1 step ahead of every attack, not 1 step in space, 1 step in time. His force foresight in this prime body reads the geometry of each strike before the blade has traveled 6 inches, and the body executing those reads has no ceiling of physical response, no gap between perception and action. The first 45 seconds pass. Yoda has not struck once. He has simply denied. Every attack redirected, every combination dissolved at the point of formation, every attempt to establish the rhythm that Maul's entire combat identity is built on, interrupted, not countered. Just interrupted, the way you interrupt a sentence by not being where the sentence intended to go. Maul has never experienced this. He has fought Jedi. He has fought trained mercenaries and assassins and former Special Forces soldiers. He has fought beings faster than himself and being stronger. In every engagement, his aggression produced results. It was met, deflected, overcome, but it produced results. It registered. It forced responses he could exploit. This produces nothing. 0. The force pressure of his attacks returns to him like blows struck at open air. He begins to recalibrate mid-combination. This is the error. Not the recalibration itself, the timing of it. Recalibrating mid-combination requires the brief, fractional allocation of attention to something other than the sequence in progress. It is invisible in most engagements. It costs 1 centimeter on the extension of a forward lunge. Yoda takes the centimeter. He sidesteps. His free hand extends, force grip seizing the saber staff's shaft at the balance point, and pulls. Not against Maul's strength, but perpendicular to it, redirecting the weapon along the vector Maul's own momentum had already committed to. The staff spins away across the platform and skitters to a stop 30 feet out. Maul does not hesitate. Weaponless is a state he is trained for. He commits to hand immediately, closing the distance with genuine explosive speed. His entire body a weapon, targeting the throat. Yoda moves inside the charge. One hand redirects the arm, 1 foot repositions. A force pressure applied to the base of the spine. Precise, targeted, not punishing, simply removing the option of further movement. In the same continuous motion, Maul is face down on the platform with Yoda's hand resting on the back of his neck and a force weight along his spine that communicates with absolute clarity, "Stay there." It took 4 seconds from the moment the saber staff left his hand. Maul is breathing hard. His cheek is against the platform surface. Every muscle in his body is straining against a hold that does not strain back. "Alive," Yoda says, quietly and mostly to himself, as if confirming a preference he had already established. "Prefer you alive." He sits beside Maul on the platform, not behind him, beside him, at the level of the young man's face, and places both palms against either side of his head. Light contact. Neither forceful nor invasive in its physical pressure. Maul fights it. His mental conditioning was built for Sith-style assault, the dark side technique that batters through defenses by force, that overwhelms through dominance and aggression. He has fortified against it. His mental architecture is organized around repelling exactly that kind of intrusion. The doors reinforced on the side from which the attack was trained to come. The attack he was trained for does not come. This is something else. A light side reading from a prime body with 9 centuries of technique, not hammering at the doors but walking through the ones that were never locked because the attack was never supposed to arrive from this direction. Yoda moves through what is available without resistance. He is efficient. He takes what he needs and does not go further. The name. The face. Darth Sidious, not as an abstract title but as a specific human being whose features Maul knows with the intimate familiarity of a lifetime of service. The address at 500 Republica, where a senator from Naboo conducts his legitimate business. The Naboo political timeline, the sequence of levers, the intended outcome. The separatist framework in its early construction, the correspondence chains, the names of senators already turned. He lifts his hands, stands, steps back. "Enough," he says. Enough. Maul lies still on the platform, breathing, intact. His eyes carry the expression of a being who has been opened in a way he did not know was possible and does not have the framework to process. Yoda looks at him for a moment with something that is not pity and not contempt. Then he retrieves the double-bladed saber staff from where it skittered to a stop across the platform, tucks it under his arm, and turns toward the access corridor. He already knew everything the reading gave him. He knew it from 9 centuries of accumulated memory and the evidence recovered from a sealed chamber 3 nights ago. But knowing is one thing. A witness who can be brought before the Senate and confirm, under formal testimony, the face and name and voice of Darth Sidious, that is something else entirely. He has the evidence. Now he has the witness. The Supreme Chancellor's private office is smaller than people expect. Finis Valorum is a man who inherited a title with more history than power and has spent his career discovering the precise dimensions of what the Republic's political architecture will and will not permit him to do. The office reflects this, functional, not ceremonial, the desk of a man who works rather than presides. He is at it when Yoda arrives, and he remains seated while Yoda sets the evidence package on the surface in front of him. Because a Grand Master appearing without appointment in the Chancellor's private office with a sealed dossier under his arm is, in Valorum's considered judgment, not a situation that benefits from procedural objection. He reads for a long time. The room is very quiet. Yoda stands, does not sit, does not explain the documents. They are assembled to explain themselves, and they do. When Valorum finishes, he sets the last page down with the careful deliberateness of a man making sure his hands remain visible. This has been happening, he says. For how long? His entire Senate career, Yoda says. Longer. Another silence. Outside the office windows, the Senate district moves in its ordinary morning patterns. Traffic, people, the bureaucratic machinery of a trillion lives, running on infrastructure that has had a Sith Lord embedded at its apex for decades. How did we miss it? Looked too far away, we did. The darkness we feared was distant, ancient, defeated, gone to the outer dark. Never imagined it sat in our building, in our meetings, breathing our air. A pause. Our failure, Chancellor. Not yours. Ours. Valorum looks at the dossier. Then, at Yoda. He is not a weak man. He is a man the system has been grinding down for years, with the particular patience of a system that benefits from his paralysis. Give him a clear enemy and a legal path, and he is exactly what the Republic needs him to be. I'll have the Republic warrant prepared, he says. 1 hour. 3 masters. 1 elevator. The lobby of 500 Republica rising above them in its quiet luxury. The building where the Republic's senior political class maintains its residences, where security personnel calculate every visitor against the gravity of their Republic authorization and the professional cost of being wrong. The warrant and the Grand Master's seal produce no complications. The security detail steps aside. The elevator rises. Mace Windu stands to Yoda's left. Dooku stands to his right, perfectly still, the way he has been standing since they left Valorum's office, carrying himself with the precise, deliberate composure of a man holding something very hot with very careful hands. Whatever he says, Yoda says, and his voice is quiet enough that it belongs only to this elevator and these 3 people, say nothing. Let me speak. Every word he will calibrate against. Give him nothing to calibrate. Mace, if he fights, he won't. Not here. Too much to lose in view of too many witnesses. This is not where he fights. The elevator slows. The rotunda is where he fights. The doors open. Palpatine is at his desk. He looks up when 3 Jedi Masters walk through his apartment door without announcement. And his expression does what it has done in hundreds of Senate hearings, private negotiations, and crisis briefings across the length of his career. Nothing. The political mask, decades of calibration, the precise warm authority of a moderate statesman who only wants what is best, does not flicker, not even slightly. Master Yoda. What an unexpected. Senator Palpatine, Yoda says. Darth Sidious. Both, you are. Time for charades, there is no more. A beat. Very brief. The mask does not break. It does not shatter or crack or fall. It simply stops being useful. The way a tool stops being useful when the task it was built for no longer exists. And Palpatine sets it down with the same pragmatic economy he applies to everything. What remains underneath is cold and perfectly composed and considerably more honest than anything that came before. I see you've been very busy, Grand Master. Busy, yes, done, not yet. Palpatine's eyes move to Dooku. Not a long look, a second, perhaps 2. The specific attention of a man who has spent years cultivating an asset and is now observing that asset standing on the wrong side of a room and processing the full informational content of that position in the time it takes most people to blink. Something adjusts in his expression. Not grief, not anger, the rapid, cold recalculation of years of investment that has been rendered null, and the simultaneous forward projection of what that means for the shape of the coming engagement. He looks back at Yoda. Then, he begins. Deflection first, the mild confusion of a wrongly accused man who is attempting, for the record, to understand what specific claims are being made. His voice carries the careful perplexity of someone who has nothing to hide and is simply trying to follow the logic of an alarming situation. This transitions into the statesman's measured concern that the Jedi Order appears to be acting outside its mandate, that extraordinary accusations require extraordinary evidence, that he is, with great respect, uncertain what authority permits this intrusion. Then, the subtle pivot toward outrage, refined and contained, the quiet anger of a public servant who has dedicated his career to the Republic and finds himself confronted with what appears to be an institutional overreach of serious proportions. Every register, every tool, deployed in precise sequence, each one building on the last. Yoda stands and lets it run. He does not interrupt, does not argue, does not react. Engaging with the performance would give it traction, and he will not give it traction. He stands in Palpatine's apartment with his hands folded, and his expression, the expression of someone who has already heard this argument in all its possible forms, and found it sufficient to wait through once. The performance requires 45 seconds. When it finishes, Yoda sets the datapad on the desk. The holocron plays. Palpatine's own voice fills the apartment. Measured, precise, the voice of a man describing his own plan to an attentive recipient. The Naboo political timeline. The names, the pressure points, the sequence of leverage. His strategy, in his words, in the tonal signature that is unmistakably his. Naming his own assets. Narrating his own methods. The apartment is very quiet. Palpatine says nothing for a long moment. His face gives nothing. But the silence itself gives something. The specific quality of a performance that has no next move. Of a mind encountering a position from which no available option is superior to simply acknowledging reality. Well. Almost quiet. Almost, in some sense, genuine. You are more than I expected. Expected nothing from me, did you? Yoda says. Underestimated the old man in his chair. To your advantage, that was. No longer. Something moves across Palpatine's face, very fast, very brief, gone before it fully forms. Not quite respect. The thing adjacent to it. The Order has never produced anything like you before, Grand Master. No, Yoda agrees. Had to lose everything first, it did. Expensive education, but thorough. The arrest is clean and formal. The Republic warrant names Senator Sheev Palpatine of the Chamel sector. It is served by the word of the Grand Master and countersigned by the Chancellor. 2 Republic judicial officers, present in the corridor at Valorum's direction, take custody. Palpatine rises from his desk with the unhurried dignity of a man who has decided that this, too, is a move. He straightens his robes. He does not look at Dooku again. He does not look at Mace. He picks up nothing from the desk before being escorted from the apartment, because there is nothing here that will help him, and he does not perform attachment to things that cannot. He already knows his network is moving. He can feel it, through channels too subtle for the warrant officers to detect. The pressure he is applying by existing and being seen to be detained, the favors that will be called in by morning, the immunity proceedings that will place him in the Senate rotunda within hours. This is not defeat. This is relocation. He passes Yoda in the doorway. Stops, just for a moment. You don't fight like a Jedi, Grand Master. Yoda meets his eyes. No, he says. Fight like a Jedi who watched what Jedi fighting cost. Different, that is. Palpatine holds his gaze for 1 second. Then he walks through the door and down the corridor without looking back. The Naboo blockade collapses 48 hours later, with the Trade Federation's political leverage supply severed at its source and the Senate's emergency session consuming the capital's attention. The calculated pressure that held the blockade in place simply has nothing left to hold it. It dissolves under diplomatic contact the way manufactured crises dissolve when the hand manufacturing them is removed. No ground invasion. No battle droids walking through the streets of Theed. No occupation. Queen Amidala of Naboo, 14 years old, operating from her throne room through entirely legitimate channels, navigates the resolution herself. She will carry the memory of that week for the rest of her life. The particular combination of crisis and its clean absence, the way the pressure simply stopped one morning. She will always know that the week her crisis ended was the week a small green Jedi Master arrested her senator. She will spend a long time thinking about what that means. 6 hours after the arrest, Palpatine walks free. His Senate network moves with the speed of decades of preparation, immunity proceedings invoked through 3 separate parliamentary channels simultaneously, emergency motions filed by allies who do not yet fully understand what they are protecting. Called-in favors deployed in the precise sequence most likely to create a legal gray zone robust enough to survive the morning. By the time the Republic's judiciary has sorted through the procedural tangle, the detained senator from Naboo has been released on the basis of an unresolved question of Senate privilege, pending formal hearing. He does not go home. He enters the Senate rotunda during an emergency session his network convened on his behalf. He does not go to his pod. He walks to the central dais, the speaking floor at the heart of the chamber, where the chamber's acoustics carry every word to every corner, and he stands in the middle of it, and he is done with the instrument of the Senate as a tool of navigation. He picks it up one final time, as a weapon. The speech is magnificent. Even now. Even cornered, documented, his own voice captured and played back against him. He drops every remaining mask simultaneously and replaces them with one final performance: the wronged statesman, the victim of a conspiracy, the voice of democratic reason in the face of institutional overreach. He claims the Jedi staged a fabricated coup, that the evidence was manufactured by a council that has grown too powerful and fears accountability, that the Grand Master has descended into something between madness and political ambition, using the Force to terrorize the Republic's elected officials into compliance. He names Dooku as a co-conspirator. He names Mace Windu as an extremist. He asks the Senate, with the quiet, passionate authority of a man who has spent his career in service of the Republic, whether this is the galaxy they intended to build. He is the most persuasive man who has ever stood on this floor, deploying everything he has, and it is enough. The chamber shifts under him, hundreds of pod voices beginning to murmur in alignment. The political momentum tilting toward a narrative that makes sense of the last 24 hours in a way that doesn't require examining the alternative too closely. The motion to censure the Jedi Order begins to take shape. It has sponsors. It has procedural support. Then Yoda walks in. He enters from the chamber's main access corridor and walks to the central dais from the opposite side. Unhurried, covering the distance at the pace of a being, with nothing to prove about how quickly he arrives. Every senator who looks at him, and they all look, receives nothing from the Force. No projection, no pressure. Just his presence, moving through the rotunda with a specific quality of weight that belongs to something that has already resolved itself and is simply completing the final steps. He stops at the dais edge. "Senators of the Republic," he says, his voice carries without amplification. "Witness today, you have already what this man is. In an hour, witnessed more, you will." A pause. The only question, ready are you to see clearly? Palpatine attacks. The Force lightning comes at full output, no build-up, no warning, not a demonstration, not a threat. The dark side's maximum expression deployed at once, the same technique that overwhelmed an aged Jedi Master in an ending that no longer has to happen. That Yoda was 900 years old. Yoda raises both palms. He catches it, not deflects, not redirects, catches, both hands extended, the lightning contained in his palms, crackling between his fingers with the compressed violence of something that expected a clear path and found a wall. The air in the rotunda crackles. Senators in the 3 nearest pods are physically thrown backward by the force pressure radiating outward from the point of contact. The holographic displays flicker. Somewhere in the upper gallery, a transparisteel viewport develops a stress fracture from the resonance. Yoda stands at the center of contained lightning with an expression of complete calm. He looks at Palpatine across the space between them. Then he releases it upward. A controlled detonation, the energy redirected into a directed shockwave through the rotunda's upper architecture. 3 observation windows blow out simultaneously. Force energy cascades through the chamber in a wave that reaches every Force-sensitive on Coruscant that will be reported hours later by Jedi in the Temple and dark side adepts in the underworld who felt something shift in the Force at this moment without knowing what it meant. Palpatine's expression changes. He wasn't supposed to do that. The duel moves in 3 dimensions. Palpatine is not limited to the dais floor and doesn't stay on it. He is brilliant and fast and trained in secret for decades, the dark side amplifying his speed and reach, and the particular vicious inventiveness of a mind that has been solving problems longer than most civilizations have existed. He uses the Senate pods as terrain, leaping between hovering platforms, using them as obstacles and cover and the high ground that Form 7 constantly seeks. He fights the way he has always operated, constant pressure, constant initiative, forcing the response he wants, and exploiting it. Yoda does not give him responses to exploit. He meets every attack with the minimum necessary, the precise deflection, the exact repositioning, the efficiency of a body that has stopped distinguishing between what it perceives and what it can execute. He is not fighting with the stillness of emptiness, not the Jedi meditation calm that looks like absence. He is fighting from the stillness of someone who has already grieved every outcome this man could produce, already lost every person this man threatened to take, already lived through the worst version of this and survived it, and arrived here with nothing left to be afraid of losing. You cannot bait someone with a loss they have already survived. Force drain. Mid-combat, Palpatine attempts the technique that pulls Force reserves from an opponent, depletes their connection to the Force at its source, reduces them to something ordinary and beatable. Against the aged body with its managed reserves, it might have worked. Against a 200-year prime body, with reserves still climbing toward their ceiling, the attempt bounces. Returns to its sender as blank resistance, like a drain opened beneath an ocean. Palpatine takes one step backward. Yoda advances. "Centuries you spent on this plan," he says, not between exchanges, but during them. His blade moving while his voice moves, both operating simultaneously. Every contingency, every counter, every possible response from every possible threat. Another exchange, another advance. And never, not once did you consider, what if the Jedi improved? What if we fixed what was broken? He drives Palpatine toward the center of the dice. The lightning attempts come faster now and more erratic, defensive rather than offensive, desperate geometry rather than calculated pressure. "The arrogance of the Sith," Yoda says, "planned for the Jedi as we were, never for what we could become." The physical duel tightens, the space between them contracts. Palpatine is the most dangerous combatant who has ever lived, and he is losing. Not because he is making errors, but because every correct move is meeting something that has already prepared for it, and the reserve is finite, and Yoda's is not. The sustained Force output begins to cost him his mask, the human face, the senator's face, the moderate statesman, the kindly chancellor-in-waiting, requires maintenance. Requires the constant low-level Force application that has kept it in place for decades, projecting warmth, projecting normalcy, projecting the face of someone whose worst crime is caring too much about the Republic. Under the sustained pressure of the duel, that maintenance becomes a cost he cannot pay. It falls away. What the Senate sees, what several thousand representatives see, what the holographic display network is transmitting live across the rotunda and through every connected screen on Coruscant, is what was always there. The ravaged face, the yellow eyes burning in the orbital hollows of something very old and very patient, and completely without mercy, wearing a politician's suit. The thing that has been sitting in their meetings for decades. The gasps move through the chamber in a wave. The holographic transmitters carry every frame of it outward. Palpatine's blade is gone. He is on one knee on the central dais of the Galactic Senate, every reserve spent, the dark side still present in him, but no longer sufficient, looking up at a being who has beaten him in every dimension this engagement offered. Yoda stands before him. He sheathes his lightsaber. "Enough," he says. The Senate watches. Thousands of representatives in their pods above the dais floor. Thousands of faces pressed toward the chamber's edge, looking down at a kneeling figure and a small green being standing before him with his weapons sheathed. The holographic displays are still transmitting, every screen on Coruscant still carrying this. The silence has the quality of a held breath at galactic scale. Yoda could kill him. It would be clean, one motion, a fraction of a second, completely justifiable under any interpretation of law or self-defense the Republic could apply. The Sith Lord Darth Sidious, exposed before the full Senate, on his knees and depleted. The most dangerous being in the galaxy, available for the simplest possible ending. He stands with his weapon sheathed. Because killing Darth Sidious is not the point. The point is what the Senate has already witnessed. The face behind the face, the plan behind the plan, decades of deliberate architecture exposed in the one place in the galaxy where exposure cannot be managed away. A dead Palpatine becomes a martyr in the narrative his network will construct before the week is out. An exposed, documented, severed Palpatine in Republic custody is the real defeat. But there is something beyond custody. Something that has no name in any Jedi text Yoda can locate, because no Jedi before him had the precise combination of what is required to attempt it. 9 centuries of technique, a prime body that can sustain the cost, and, most essentially, the specific emotional vocabulary the Order spent 1,000 years telling its members to cut away. No, he says, mostly to himself. Something else. He kneels. Not in submission. In position, both hands placed with deliberate care on either side of Palpatine's head, light contact, no force in the physical placement. Palpatine looks at him with the yellow eyes still burning and says nothing, because he is reading the situation, and the situation is presenting him with something he has no established category for. Yoda reaches into the Force, not into Palpatine's mind, not into the space between them, into the Force itself, into the structural architecture of the bond that runs between this being and the dark side reservoir he has spent decades building and feeding and deepening. The connection is not philosophical. It is not a choice he makes each morning. It is a grown thing, structural. The way roots are structural. Threaded through every layer of him, sustaining his vitality beyond natural lifespan, amplifying what the Force alone would never have given him, the engine of everything Darth Sidious is. Yoda finds the first thread. What is required to unwind it is not power. Power was the duel that is already spent, already finished, the Force physical reserves Yoda drew on across those exchanges. This draws on something different, something deeper, something the Order trained its members to excise as a liability. He lets grief in, not managed grief, not the disciplined acknowledgement of loss as a passing state. The full weight of 19 years in a swamp on a planet of no consequence, every person he failed present in his awareness simultaneously. Their faces, their voices, the specific irreversible fact of each loss. He lets love in. The love for Anakin that he suppressed for 60 years in the name of proper detachment, because attachment leads to fear and fear leads to darkness, and every inch of that doctrine was wrong, and the wrongness of it cost everything. He lets hope in, not the abstract hope of the Order's meditations, but the specific, concrete hope of a being who has seen the worst outcome and knows the alternative is real because he is living it. These are the solvent. The dark side bond was built on their absence. Its architecture assumes their absence. It has no defense against them because it was never designed to face them. Thread by thread. It costs him more than the entire duel, more than every engagement since he woke in this body. The duel was the surface of what he can do. This is the depth. The Force in the Rotunda changes, not the combat chaos of minutes ago that was turbulence, dramatic, registerable as physical event. This is something prior to that, a shift in the underlying state of the Force itself. The way the quality of light changes before a weather system arrives, not the storm yet, but the air before the storm, except the opposite of storm. The air before a clearing. Every Force sensitive in the building registers it before they understand what it is. 3 levels below the Grand Master's quarters in the Jedi Temple, Anakin Skywalker stops mid-exercise. He is in a training room. He has been running a balance sequence, standing on one foot on a narrow platform with his eyes closed, extending his Force awareness outward in the progressively larger concentric circles his instructor assigned for the afternoon. He stops because something in the galaxy has moved. He puts both hands over his chest, very slowly. Breathes. The force is shifting towards something he has no word for. He has been alive for 9 years inside a force that presses down at a specific low frequency, constant background, something he has never identified as a weight because he has never felt its absence. Pressure becomes invisible when it never stops. It is stopping now. Somewhere out there, something is releasing. It feels like relief. He stands in the training room with both hands over his chest and breathes slowly, and does not know what is happening, and knows it is right. In the rotunda, Palpatine screams. Not a combat sound, not the controlled force projection of a fighter, something older than either, the sound of a structural thing being separated from what sustains it. The sound that has no training category because nothing in the history of the Order has ever produced it. It moves through the rotunda and reaches every gallery and every pod and every senator watching, and not one of them has a response to it, because there is no prepared response. He ages, visibly, continuously, the dark side reservoir, retreating like tide going out from stone it has covered for decades. Not violently, not in combat damage, but in the particular inexorable manner of something that can no longer maintain its position against what is pressing it back. 5 years in 30 seconds. 10 years. The yellow eyes burning with everything that sustained him, burning brighter for a moment as it resists, and then, fading, gray, what remains when the tide has fully gone is just a man on the floor of the Senate rotunda. Very old. The ravaged face remains. That damage is real, is his, is nothing that borrowed dark-side vitality placed there. But the intensity behind it is gone. The cold, absolute certainty, the centuries of patient, terrible intelligence deployed from behind a senator's smile. He is not tranquil. He is frightened, the way very old men are frightened when the thing that has been sustaining them suddenly isn't. He is simply ordinary. Yoda lifts his hands and stands, and the effort of standing is visible in him for the first time. A depth of depletion that the duel never produced, the cost of what he just performed settling into his limbs. He breathes once, steadily, and is still. Palpatine sits on the dais, not kneeling, not defiant, just sitting. The way you sit when sitting is what remains. He looks up. Centuries. Just his voice. No resonance in it, no force amplification, no instrument behind the word. An old man's voice, in an old man's body, in the place where he was supposed to win. I had centuries of preparation, a plan without flaw. A plan without flaw, except one. A pause. And what was that? You planned for a Jedi Order that did not learn from its mistakes, Yoda says. I planned for one that did. The silence between them holds. I did not know, Palpatine says, and something in the way he says it carries the specific quality of a genuine statement. There could be a Jedi such as you. There couldn't be. A pause. Had to lose everything. First, that was your gift to me. In a life I have already lived. He looks at the old man on the floor of the Senate. Thank you, Darth Sidious, for the lesson. He turns away. Finis Valorum stands in the Chancellor's box above the rotunda floor. He has watched everything. He is a man who has spent his career learning the difference between what the Republic is supposed to be and what the Republic's political machinery actually permits. And today, the gap between those two things closed in a way he did not know it could close. He addresses the assembled Senate from the box. His voice is quiet. It carries anyway. This body was not built for its own protection, he says. It was built for the protection of every being in this galaxy. Today, we were reminded what that means. A pause. And by whom? The vote to proceed with full judicial investigation is called. It is unanimous. Palpatine's network fractures the way networks fracture when the center is removed, not all at once, but in the rapid progressive detachment of nodes calculating that what they protected no longer offers protection in return. Decades of Senate allies begin distancing themselves from a dossier they had not read until the rotunda's holographic displays made it impossible to avoid. The Trade Federation's leadership resigns in sequence, each resignation faster than the last, as the political mathematics become undeniable. The early architecture of the separatist movement, The correspondence networks, the grievance forums, the cultivated frustrations of systems that had real complaints and were being carefully aimed. Collapses before it coheres into anything with military weight. Without the architect, the design is just materials. The clone commission from Camino is investigated and quietly voided when Sifo Dyas's manipulation is documented, and Dooku provides the chain of evidence he carried out of level 5000 in both hands. No clone army. No war. The Republic does not become perfect. It was never going to become perfect. It is a vast, slow, imperfect instrument for managing the competing interests of 1 trillion lives, and that is what it remains. But the single most dangerous specific threat embedded within it, the one that was going to take that imperfect instrument and use it as a tool of absolute conquest, is gone. The work that remains is the work that was always going to matter more. The Council debates Yoda's curriculum reforms for 8 months. The debates are real and sustained, because the counselors are serious people taking seriously the question of whether an order that has operated on certain foundational principles for 1,000 years should amend those principles because one master had a difficult life. Ki-Adi-Mundi is the most consistent voice of resistance. Not from cruelty, but from the genuine conviction that the suppression doctrine exists, because attachment has historically been the mechanism of Jedi failure. He is not wrong about the history, he is wrong about the conclusion. The evidence from Anakin is, ultimately, impossible to argue against. He progresses faster than any student in recorded history. His force connection is stable, not volatile. His emotional range, which would have been evaluated as a liability under the old doctrine and subjected to aggressive suppression training, is instead understood and worked with, and it produces a student who laughs in training, who asks his instructors why before he asks them how, who goes to his mother after difficult sessions and returns calmer than he left. He is not destabilized by feeling things. He is stabilized by it. The theory said the opposite would be true. The theory was wrong. Mace Windu is the first counselor to fully adopt the new approach. He does it without ceremony, changing his own teaching practice in the middle of a session and saying nothing about it to anyone, just doing it, because he is a rigorous man and rigorous people change when the evidence changes. His endorsement, quiet and practical, breaks what remains of the resistance. The doctrine shifts, not all at once, not without ongoing argument, but in the direction Yoda set it. Padawans maintain contact with their families under structured guidance. The premise moves from suppress what you feel to understand what you feel and choose what to do with it. The Force is taught not as a power to be managed, but as a relationship to be cultivated. Dooku takes the political liaison role with the Senate and becomes, within 2 years, the most effective advocate the Jedi have had in the legislature in a generation. His razor intelligence, undiminished. His earned distrust of easy political narratives, no longer corrosive, but clarifying. He is, as it turns out, exactly what the Order needed in the Senate, a man who genuinely understands corruption and will not be fooled by it again. Anakin at 11, learning Form the Three with a patient instructor in a practice room where the morning light comes in at a low angle and turns the floor gold. Shmi stands in the doorway watching her son learn to defend. He leaves her a note before bed most nights, in case she worries, he says, though he writes them partly for himself. The habit of a child who spent years in a house where the people who mattered might be gone in the morning. His instructor has never seen a student progress so quickly. The instructor also notes, privately, that he has never encountered a student who asks more interesting questions about why. Anakin at 13, in considerable trouble for modifying a temple training droid to operate at 340% of its rated capacity. The droid performs magnificently until the 3rd session, at which point it performs magnificently through a wall. Yoda's response, delivered in the hallway outside the demolished training room, gifted with engineering you are. Punish you, I will not. Build me a better one, you will. The resulting droid, with proper containment protocols and a speed ceiling Anakin designs himself, is still in service 2 decades later. Anakin at 16, first diplomatic function, Senate District, the lobby of a building that still smells faintly of political ambition and expensive wood. He is standing beside Yoda, waiting for a committee briefing to begin, when Senator Padme Amidala of Naboo crosses the lobby. 5 years his senior, but moving with the particular complete authority of someone who has never had the experience of a room, not quite responding to her the way she expected. He watches her for approximately 4 seconds before becoming aware that he is watching. "Close your mouth, young Skywalker," Yoda says. Anakin closes it. Padme has not noticed. Yet, Anakin at 18, Padawan trials. The examining masters convene for 3 days. Their final report contains, in its summary section, the line, "We have tested this Padawan's connection to the Force. The Force appears to be testing us back." He passes. Shmi organizes a dinner. She invites everyone. Anakin at 22. Knighted. The ceremony is in the council chamber, the traditional format, 12 masters present in the morning light. At the moment his braid is cut, that specific final severance of the Padawan marker, he looks at his mother where she sits in the observer's gallery. She nods, the specific nod that means, yes, this is right. You are exactly who you were supposed to be. It is the most important moment of the ceremony for both of them. By the time Ahsoka Tano arrives at the temple for her formal initiation, Anakin is a teenage initiate who has become semi-legendary among the younger students for 2 things: his ability, which requires no embellishment, and his complete unwillingness to let new students struggle alone when he could do something about it. He takes an inexplicable and immediate interest in the small Togruta girl he remembers from Sheely, older now, 7 or 8. The montrals more pronounced, the confidence entirely unchanged. She is unimpressed by his dramatics, there are considerable dramatics, and she says so, directly on the second day. He is immediately and completely delighted by this. She calls him Skygi. He calls her Snips in retaliation for a specific comment about his hair that she has never apologized for, and does not intend to. They argue about technique constantly, and agree about almost everything that actually matters. Neither of them knows what they are to each other yet, in the full sense, only that the connection is real and correct, and not something either of them had to build from nothing. Yoda watches from a distance, from the garden doorway where he has developed the habit of standing in the late afternoon when the light comes in warm from the west. Yes, he thinks. He steps back from the Grand Master role when Mace Windu is clearly the right person to hold it. Not because he is asked, not because he is pushed, because he has been watching Mace for 10 years since that morning session when he walked through the council chamber door and changed everything, and Mace is ready, and Yoda is ready to let him be ready. He makes the recommendation to the council with the same direct clarity he has used for everything since he woke in this body. No ceremony, no extended process. Just, Mace Windu is your Grand Master. This is the correct decision. He moves on. He takes a smaller set of rooms in the temple's quiet east wing. He teaches a morning class of initiates, very young ones, the age where Force sensitivity is new and strange and frequently surprising to the children it inhabits. He walks in the garden every afternoon. He watches the Coruscant sun rise from his window with the particular quality of attention that belongs to someone who has seen this city burning and knows that it is not burning, and is simply letting that fact be true each morning, without analysis, without the need to do anything about it. He is not lonely. He has been alone on Dagobah. He knows what that is. This is not that. This is the opposite of that. Anakin finds him in the garden at dawn. He comes without announcement because he has been doing this since he was 9 years old on a shuttle leaving Tatooine, and the silence between them is among the most comfortable silences he knows. He sits beside Yoda on the low stone bench near the eastern beds, where the earliest light has just reached. And they stay like that for a while without speaking. Then, Master Yoda? He is in his late 20s, a knight approaching masterhood. He still sounds sometimes like the boy on the water trough in Mos Espa who laughed before he could stop himself. Do you think the prophecy was right? About me being the chosen one? A pause. It feels like you did most of the work. Yoda is quiet. He watches the light move across the garden, the slow, incremental gold of a Coruscant morning, falling on plants that have been tended in this space for 1,000 years. Right, the prophecy was, he says at last. Understood correctly, it wasn't. Said it would. Bring balance to the Force. Thought that meant do something. Defeat someone. Sacrifice yourself. But you fought Palpatine. Yes. And you know what balance cost? In a life I've already lived? Everything. Every single thing. And then one more thing on top of that. He looks at his hands, folded on his knee. And that was one path to the destination. He turns and looks at Anakin. Balance is not an act, not a battle, not a death. Balance is a state of being, what you are, right now, today, a man who loves, who grieves, who fights and laughs and forgives, who has his mother and his friend and his sky. This is balance. The Force did not need you to destroy the darkness. The Force needed you to exist fully in the light. Anakin is quiet for a moment, working through it. That feels like a smaller destiny than I expected. The ancient eyes smile. Larger it is. Grand gestures, wars, duels, sacrifices, over in an hour. A life well lived? Echoes forever. Footsteps on the garden path. Shmi Skywalker, carrying a tray with 3 cups of tea, moving through the morning light with the unhurried ease of a woman who has learned that some mornings can simply be mornings. She sits. She hands out the cups without commentary. The 3 of them in the garden, in the early light, with the city quiet around them. Somewhere in the Force, in whatever space holds the futures that did not have to happen, a darkness that was supposed to consume everything simply is not. The Force is balanced. Let us know what you'd like to see next. The end.